Well, tonight we mark a haunting milestone. The 16th of October 2025 is the 50th anniversary of the deaths of the Balibo Five. Back in 1975, five Australian based journalists, Greg Shackleton, Tony Stewart, Gary Cunningham, Malcolm Rennie, and Brian Peters, went into the border town of Balibo in East Timor to document the impending Indonesian invasion. They believed their role as journalists and the fact that they'd painted an Australian flag on their makeshift shelter would give them protection. Instead, on 16 October 1975, they were deliberately killed, shot or stabbed, and their bodies were burned in what a New South Wales coroner later found was not crossfire, but a targeted killing. For decades, the Australian government avoided full accountability. Even with the 2007 inquest concluding the killings were deliberate, few have been held to account. This was one of the last pieces to camera Greg Shackleton did before his death.
Something happened here last night that moved us very deeply. It was so far outside our experience as Australians and so inextricably interwoven with the atmosphere of this place that we'll find it very difficult to convey to you in an Australian living room, but we'll try. We were brought to this tiny native village from Maliana because we were told that Maliana was not safe at night. When we arrived, the second in charge, who speaks very little English, came to us and in a halting but urgent way said the commander wanted to speak to us. And then for the next hour, sitting on woven mats under a thatched roof in a hut with no walls, we were the target of a barrage of questioning from men who know they may die tomorrow and cannot understand why the rest of the world does not care. Why, they ask, are the Indonesians invading us? Why, they ask, if the Indonesians believe that Fretlin is communist, do they not send a delegation to Dili to find out? Why, they ask, are the Australians not helping us? When the Japanese invaded, they did help us. Why, they ask, are the Portuguese not helping us? We're still a Portuguese colony. Who, they ask, will pay for the terrible damage to our homes? My main answer was that Australia would not send forces here. That's impossible. However, I said we could ask that Australia raise this fighting at the United Nations. That was possible. At that, the second in charge rose to his feet, exclaimed, "Camarada journalist," shook my hand, the rest shook my hand, and we were applauded because we are Australians. That's all they want, for the United Nations to care about what is happening here. The emotion here last night was so strong that we, all three of us, felt we should be able to reach out into the warm night air and touch it. Greg Shackleton at an unnamed village, which we'll remember forever in Portuguese Timor.
Unfortunately, forever wasn't that long. Now, the reason we have this footage is because back then news reports were literally filmed on actual film cameras back then. The canisters containing those films would be sent back to Australia for use in the nightly news, and that would be weeks later. It's not like now when we have satellite technology and we can go live anywhere. So by the time the Balibo Five had lost their lives, their footage was still making its way back to Australia on ships or flights. Today, the families still demand a formal apology, transparency about what the Australian intelligence knew, and the prosecutions they say were promised but never delivered. Now, there are commemorative events planned in both Balibo and Melbourne. The Balibo House Trust, in collaboration with the East Timorese partners, will host ceremonies and renewed calls for justice. Even now, half a century later, the story of the Balibo Five is not just about five deaths. It's about truth, power, and what a democracy owes to those who bear witness.